brothers and saints out there, it's TJ MotorSage here. I want to tell you about finally a problem that's been fixed. It's been 2 years in the making. First of all, this little piece right here is a PCM, Powertrain Control Module. Came out of my Chevrolet pickup, and it's quite a piece of computerized equipment. And from everything that I'm told, it should not be bad. It would be one of the last things to check out. So I checked out a whole lot of other things and replaced a whole lot of things before I came down to this. So listen up, I'll talk about a little bit about it. Trouble with my truck started on a trip back from North Carolina where I had interviewed for a church position as the pastor, an interim pastor at that church. Stopped for some gas and sat there for a few minutes, and the temperature was a hot day, and the truck stalled and wouldn't start back up again. Well, we let it cool off for a while, started back up, and then came all the way home from Carolina. No trouble at all. Well, that was in June, and by July we were ready to go out west. I had agreed to supply, as a pastor of a church there, out in Rapid City for about 3 weeks to help out another pastor. Well, I got as far as Michigan, and sure enough, truck stalled again. And it's continued. We went to Michigan, then on into Wisconsin and Iowa, stayed there a couple of weeks, went up to North Dakota for a week or so, and eventually ended up down in Rapid City. Well, at that particular time, I decided, well, I better do something about it. So I checked the cables and did a couple of things, and finally somebody had told me that it could be the resistor under the hood, the thermal fuse that was on the inside firewall of the truck. So I decided to replace it and check the battery cables. Well, after we had gone from Rapid City, we went out to Enterprise, Oregon, and to Joseph, Oregon for 3 weeks to serve in the pulpit of the church out there. And on the way out, we stopped in to visit Yellowstone Park, and the thing did it again. It hot stalled right in the middle of a buffalo herd. And we had a big old bull buffalo trying to stick his nose in the window and scared the daylights out of my wife and the dogs. So I decided, well, it's about time we really got to dig into this. So while we're out at Joseph, Oregon, things cooled off. It was heading towards the end of November. And we headed back east and didn't have any problem at all. So I figured, well, maybe the problem just was one of those things where moisture got into something and was cured. And so we went all winter without any trouble. But that wasn't the end of it. As soon as the weather got hot the following year, it started doing it again, off and on. And seemed to happen some of the worst times. I remember being in the middle of a hamburger joint drive-in, and got up the window to pay the fare, and the truck stalled, and I had to sit there and open the hood and let it cool off for a few minutes, and then it started right up again. I was able to move again. And this continued on until I started digging into some online activities. some research on YouTube told me about the fact that they had a lot of trouble with the ground cable from the battery to the engine and to the vehicle's frame. So I went and ordered one off Amazon and put it all in. And I checked the body grounds, I checked the computer grounds, and all made sure they were all up and in good condition. And it took some time, and still, after all of that, there was no improvement. In fact, it was getting worse. When it used to do it at 85 degrees, anything warmer than 85 degrees it installed. Then it was down to 80, and then 75. Now it got down to the point where anything above 70 degrees Fahrenheit in warm weather, this truck would just stall. Finally, even after putting in a brand new ignition switch, I thought that might be the problem, ended up deciding, well, I'm going to go the freight and buy a replacement computer. So I ordered one offline, and it came, but with no instructions, no guidance, no settings for it. Before putting the computer into the truck, I decided to check some computer codes with the tester. So I went under the dash with the plug-in and checked and found a code P0601, which indicated a bad PCM. So I went ahead with the project and decided to replace the computer. And looking around under the hood, I knew the thing was under the left side front of the vehicle, so it was right there next to the radiator, in a hot spot right next to that radiator. Those GM engineering department people were really smart putting a computer next to a hot radiator. Replacing that computer was pretty simple project. It's about a 15-minute job. Simply undo the plugs. You got a little red tab on each plug that has to be pulled back. It's a safety tab. And then pull the lever out and release the plug. Now there's two plugs that have to come out of the computer before you can remove the unit. And there's two tabs on the top of the holder, the computer nesting unit there, to pop out of the way a little bit with a small screwdriver, and the computer lifts right up and out. So I put the new one in, reconnected everything, hooked up the negative battery cable back up, and the car wouldn't start. So I ended up having to contact the computer supplier, Flagship One, and they gave me the instructions on how to reprogram it. They should have been with the computer when it was sent. And everything was fine. The truck started up, run good, and the check engine light stayed on. Well, that's when I found out that the computer had to relearn the crankshaft position sensor, and that could only be done by the dealer. So the truck needed an oil filter change anyway, so I took it down to a dealer in a nearby town, and they hooked me up and made the computer relearn the crankshaft position sensor, and things have been fine since. It's been smooth running. I've taken it out in some hot weather, and no stalling. So, like the computers can go bad, well, they sure can.